Hello there, and welcome to our comparison of the Amazon Kindle 3 with Apple's iPad, specifically for the purpose of reading the ministry. I'd like to just set the scene a little bit before I begin by saying that it's not an exhaustive overview of either of these devices, but rather, because people have been asking me, how can I read the ministry on an e-reader? Which one should I go for? How do they work? All these sorts of questions. I thought I would give a brief overview, and I thought I would start by showing you the size of these devices. The Amazon Kindle is a good bit thinner, and it's easy to hold in one hand, and because of its physical size as well, you can slot it into a bag or into a large pocket. It can be easily carried with you. The iPad, however, is a much heavier, thicker and larger device. And actually, when you're sitting reading it, using it, you can do it with one hand, but it really requires two, and it's a little bit more weighty. So the first thing I would say about them is, for the actual bit, once we get into it, of sitting reading using one of these devices, in my opinion, the Kindle is a nicer thing to use. Right, let's actually look at the devices. Let's start with the iPad, which has, when you switch it on, a number of coloured icons for all the apps that you can select. But let's go into iBooks, which doesn't come as standard, but it's freely downloadable from the Apple website. That's a volume I was looking at previously. So it shows you here a list of all the volumes that you have in order, with a nice description of each book. So I've got everything loaded on here, as I do in both devices, for a side-by-side comparison. If I search at the top here, it's quite handy. I can type FER. The iPad generally, for doing things like navigating and moving about and things like that, is a better machine. Apple have thought about it very closely, and because it's a touch screen, it's very intuitive. But as I said in introduction, the actual bit about reading is easier done on the Kindle, in my opinion. So here we've opened up the volume of Mr. Raven, and the first thing that appears is a cover page. Tells you what volume you're in. I tap at the bottom of the corner of the page to turn a page, or I can do it by swiping. The next thing I see is a table of contents. Now, this table of contents here is to support the Kindle. I'm thinking of actually removing it from the iPad version, because if you click on the top corner there, you get Apple's own table of contents, which is a nicer thing to use. It sort of moves up and down in the typical Apple way. If I go to the article I'm interested in reading, Landmarks of Grace, it's absolutely excellent. Been thoroughly enjoying it myself recently. So here we have the first page, Landmarks of Grace, is the title. We've got the scriptures and the actual text. I can increase the font size if I like, and if it's something that I can read. And then it's just a case of turning the pages like this. I can also turn it on its side and see 2 pages at a time if I like to see that mode better. And again, just turning the pages. If I do want to bookmark, it's a simple case of tapping the little bookmark icon at the top, and then when I go to my contents page, I can see that I've got bookmarks, and there's Landmarks of Grace. Tap on that, back into the bookmarked page, and I can unbookmark it at any time. Oh, there's Billy protesting in the corridor. And that, in essence, is how we use the iPad. So let's take a look at the Kindle now. Kindle starts with a screensaver mode on, which has a random author on it. Flick the switch at the bottom, click the home screen, and there we are, something similar to what we saw on the iPad. Of course, the Kindle, it does a few things other than reading, but generally it's just about reading, whereas the iPad you are navigating about to find iBooks. Let's go and find FER Volume 9. So I'm just paging down past GND, and into FER. In fact, I haven't discovered a way, there may be one, to search for volumes. You can search within the text of a volume, or within all volumes actually, which is very powerful. There's FER volume 9, using the 5-way key here to jump down to it, select it, and it's beginning in chapter 2, which is where I was the last time I was reading this book. 6% of the way through it, it says at the bottom. If I push the menu key, I can do go to, and I can go to the cover and show you what we saw on the iPad. So there's the cover screen, and then the front page, which has the author, which you can see it's formatted actually to fit the Kindle. It didn't actually look terribly good on the iPad. May have to work on that. The next page then is the table of contents, and I can use my controller key down the bottom to go to the landmarks of grace. So you get the title, the scriptures, and you just start reading. And you can see there's very little glare and reflection. Very, very nice to use. I can just hold it in one hand as I read a page, click next. As with the iPad, I can pick my font size, I might reduce it down a wee bit. Perfect. That suits me. And I can read through. Bookmarking is relatively straightforward. On the iPad, if you remember, you just sort of tapped up here. On the Kindle, you push menu and then go down to add a bookmark, and you can see that the page is bookmarked here at the top. If at any time I want to go to a bookmark, I can go to and select it. And that is the Kindle. I've just got a little summary here of the two devices. So in terms of advantages of the Kindle, it's cheap, £109 for the Wi-Fi version, which is what I would recommend you go for. The 3G version allows you to download books when you're sitting in the doctor's surgery or somewhere like that, where you don't have access to Wi-Fi. But to be honest, for me, £109, just get that one. You can do everything you need to at home. It's small and it's easy to carry and use. Unlike the iPad, which I've said is large, more cumbersome, you probably would leave it at home. The actual bit about reading is very pleasant on the Kindle. You know, I could hold it up very nicely, very easily, and read very well. I can read it in direct sunlight, the battery life is excellent, and I can search across all volumes. I showed you those things. On the cons, if you like, it does have slightly clumsy menus. It's not quite as intuitive, and things are not as well categorized. I don't know if you noticed, but if you want to put in categories, you have to do that manually, whereas the iPad kind of automates all that. So the iPad, you can use it for much more than reading. It's not simply a reader, it is a tablet. It will do an awful lot more. Bookmarking and navigating is great, as you'd expect with an Apple product. And it has good automatic categorization, which I said. One other thing, so on the cons on the iPad, it's quite expensive. You know, £500. It's a lot of money. You can't search across volumes, at least not as I've discovered. Someone will keep me right on that if it's true. And it's a wee bit pretentious to use in public. I say that because if you've actually seen people, there's a bit of iPad envy out there, and people, so you might feel uncomfortable reading one in public. You may not. These are the basic side-by-side comparison then of the Amazon Kindle 3. Buy it directly from Amazon's website. How do I get the ministry onto it? Very simple. I'll be sending out links soon, so you can download the whole lot in Kindle format, and you just plug it into your PC using a USB port and drag all the files across in one go. iPad, very similar. You'll get a download link, drag all the files into iTunes and let iTunes on your computer do its thing, then you connect up the iPad and it syncs automatically. So both are very straightforward and easy to use.